So I guess we can start. We are 12 already, which is a very good number for the discussion. We are talking today about Cat Person by Kristen Roupenian. It's a story that she published on the New Yorker, and well, it immediately got viral with many people sharing it, and well, it started a bidding war amongst publishing houses, and she ultimately secured a 7-figure deal in excess of $1 million for his debut book because of how successful this story was. It's quite controversial. One of the reasons that we chose it is that it can have many readings and it affects personal experiences. So I think it's going to be a good debate. As many of you know, Zoom provides the possibility to click on an icon where you can raise your hand to talk. This is not necessary. If the normal flow of the discussion of the conversation allows to jump in, please do so. But if so, for some reason you don't want to interrupt others or you just want to wait for your turn to talk, just press the icon. We will see that you have raised your hand and we'll ask you to intervene when possible. We are recording all these discussions that we do. No, it doesn't have a clear purpose. Probably we'll do a collection of the discussions. And if you want to show it to your friends or family or whatever, we can give you a link, but it will be private and only us can see. If anyone has a problem with the recording, just let us know and we'll stop. Usually we start with a round of opinions about the short story. So we can have, well, we can break the ice talking about the story for the first time. Let's start, for example, with Ale. If you please, what do you think of the story? Did you like it?
Yes, I like the story. I liked it a lot. It was well, it was like you were reading a true story. The voice was really like kind of yeah. The voice was so truthful. Also, though the stories can sound like a common story, boy meets girl, girl meets boy, but the thing that the voice is so truth and so explicitly truth sometimes makes the story very interesting. Also, the evolution of the perception of the guy, the character of the guy is also very interesting. How he exponentially goes into transforming into a dick. That's very good, and also the ending is gold. I liked it.
Thank you. Eloisa, what did you think of the story?
Okay, I have mixed feelings. I think it's a good story. Okay, I think it's well described. It described perfectly the feelings of the girl, and it's very realistic. Yeah, describe how she feels when she's with the guy and everything. On the other hand, I don't think it was that original. I don't know. I feel like I knew what is going to happen at the end, and the guy, because described perfectly how the guy is developing and how she's developing as well. I don't know. It's not my type of story because the plot doesn't engage me that much, because I think it's any kind of a story that you can hear from your friends if they go on Tinder. Yeah, it's very realistic. That's the thing that I like it, but it's not my type of story.
All right, Jessica, did you like the story?
I'm a bit with Eloisa. It didn't do much for me at first because, yeah, it seemed such a common occurrence. It's well written because you understand her perfectly. I was amazed by all the viral, comments it received, and all this. It made me feel very old. Yeah, because to me this was a very normal attitude. This girl trying to make him feel secure, trying to make him feel better, not being able to turn back. And this is what's caused the controversy. This is how the pressure women have on them, apparently. Well, this for me is totally normal. It's part of life. So that made me feel really old, like an older generation would feel it normal to have to cook and clean. It's I don't know, it just made me feel old and depressed. But it's well written.
Yeah, thank you. Eugenia, what did you think?
I enjoyed the story. I was pleasantly surprised that I enjoyed a story with such a simple plot. I think it's because I think Eloisa and Ale said it. The characters were very well defined. There are only really two main characters: the boy and the girl, and the man and the girl, and they're pretty straightforward. You instantly know what their personalities are, what their relationship is. I disliked the guy so much. I couldn't keep reading without saying, "Oh my god! If I ever see a guy like this, I will run in the opposite direction." But for me, it was. The aim of the story was clearly to discuss this. I believe the term uses this hookup culture, this new modern dating, and to me, it was a different view on it, because I think it neither criticizes it too much or praises it too much, but just sells it as it is, like as when you are sharing a funny story with your friends over a couple drinks and you're like, yeah, this person I dated was horrible, he was the worst, and I'm going to tell you why. It was kind of like that, and I liked it, although I'm not exactly sure why it went viral, and I'm itching to know why.
Okay, thank you. Brian, what did you think of the story? Did you like it?
Yeah, similar to a lot of other people, really. I couldn't say I love the story. I did like the writing. I felt it was very authentic, and I really got in, particularly into her mind, obviously. I couldn't say I liked either character, but I believed them, and her voice was coming through all of the time, and I felt she expressed things really well. Again, as Eloisa was saying, it wouldn't be my style of story. And sometimes I was reading it on my phone, which is not the best way to read anyway, but I was like putting down my phone and kind of almost annoyed at the characters, or just getting a little almost frustrated with them, or just wanted to kind of like, it's like the bit in the horror movie when they walk down the stairs into the basement and you're saying like, no, don't do it, and they go ahead and do it. It was that kind of feeling of stop, but because you knew where the story was going to go. But yeah, I thought it was well written, authentic, but again, I'm not too sure why it went viral.
Thank you. Susana, did you like the story?
No. No, por nada. I listened to it instead of read it. So, and I was listening to it going, I don't really want to listen to this. I'm not enjoying it at all, but I wanted to meet everybody. So I finished it. I actually think that it's well written, and you do, that characters are developed well, but I just didn't like them as people. And my overall feeling was like, oh, I'm so glad I'm not 20 and I'm dating. It would be horrible.
Okay, thank you. Mo, what did you think of the story?
Yeah, I think it's a good story. I found it difficult to read, as some of you are saying, just because it's so, well, but for different reasons. I found it painful because I know so many of us have been in that position of this girl, and it's just like, oh, it just brought up a lot of like feelings that like I don't necessarily want to feel right now. So it's good. I think the reason why it went viral is very much of the zeitgeist now this topic of these sort of toxic men and their this toxic attitude towards women. So I think it's very much of the moment. Although I don't know when it was written. Maybe it's really old and I'm like...
No, it's 2017, so
okay.
Quite recent.
And yeah, at first I didn't care for the writing because it sounded like a Facebook post or like a Reddit post or something. I was like, any amateur could write this. But then as I kept reading, I was like, okay, that's the point, right? Like that this is the story that you would read on Facebook, that you would read on Reddit, that you would read on whatever. And it's a very, very common story. And probably every woman has this story. And so I think that was the point. The writing was supposed to be like that. So then I think it was well done in that way. That's all I'll say for now.
Thank you. Andrea, if you please.
Yeah, I totally agree with Mo. Like I literally felt like I was reading like a Twitter thread about the real story. And I mean, I don't know if it's intentional, but for me, it did like, no, for me, it was worse that way. Because I agree with what you guys have said. Like, for me, this story is like so common. It's like, and I don't think that the author like adds up anything particularly new to the story. Not like the way it's written, or like I don't know if there's even like a moral of the story. For me, it's like what Eugenia says, just what happened, and that's all. So for me, I don't know. It's not my type of story, as some of you have said.
Okay. Catherine, what did you think of the story?
Oh, hello, everyone. Honestly, I laughed a lot reading throughout the entire story. I only got one perspective. It was like, it was told by just the girl's perspective. Excuse me. I was very intrigued about the male character, but I didn't really get to know him as a character until the end. And I thought it was funny. It was a different type of story, not my favorite, but it was a good, I think it was a good story overall.
Thank you. Antonia, did you like the story?
I enjoy reading the story. Hello, everyone. I had a good time. I think the point of the story is telling us something that is not real, but looking real. Looks like some of you have already told. Like some friend of ours is telling us something that happened to her. Okay, and for me, that's the point of the story. Okay, the author has achieved getting that point of normality. Okay, and that's something I really like about the characters. I felt pity for both of them. Okay. There is one thing, in my opinion, you only read the second half of the story after they go to his place, you will hate him. Okay, and usually in one story, the end is what lasts in our memory. But if we read the whole story, how both behaves, okay, I don't feel like he's the only one to blame. Okay, if we have to blame anyone, make responsible of the situation. So it's somehow couple mismatching, okay, that can give us an idea how difficult are couple relationships, even short relationships, and how they feel. We can talk deeper then because I mean, obviously we know better her, but about him, I think there are a lot of details that can give us a good idea, at least to me, about how he is, how does he feel, and how's trying to avoid some situations. And when he falls into that hole of being with her, it's when his behavior changes. He's now somewhere that it looks like he was trying to avoid to be at that point the day after. We can discuss later, but initially I like the story, and there are much more than the last few pages of the story that obviously will make us hating him.
Thank you. Hi, Clark. What did you think?
Hey, I really enjoyed the story. I thought it thought-provoking. One question I was thinking of is, what's more damning for Robert's character? Is it his last text or just the whole sex scene? Like what makes him come out in the worst light? And then just kind of imagining, we got Margot's perspective in that sex scene, but I was just imagining what his perspective on that would have been. So that's like how he might have misread the signals. So that's some things I thought I thought the characters were really interesting. And then I'm closer in age to these people, so.
Thank you. Yeah, I found it very realistic. I think that everyone that has been out there in the dating world or knowing different people in the context of a relationship or starting a relationship has lived similar things to what these two characters live. And when you're dating, I guess that you can be very lucky and find people that are nice and mentally healthy, nice in the good sense of nice, like actually being kind or just cool, good people. But you can also be very unlucky and find mentally unhealthy people or just simply assholes. And this is much like a lottery, like it's random for me, because this, and I think it's very well shown in this story, the screening test first phase where they are texting each other, they start building this story, this ideal construction of what the other one is that is completely wrong, especially hers, like because this guy evolves from being a cool guy or just a regular normal guy to a pathetic loser very fast. But on the texting stage, they don't know each other. They don't transmit any information. There's miscommunication there in many different levels, that they don't know each other. They don't know even their age. Like, he knows that she's below 21 at the moment at the bar. Like, he thought that she was older, and she didn't know his age neither. She doesn't even know if he has cats. They don't share many information. It's just light banter and jokes. So this not knowing who are you going to find until you meet them more is something that happens a lot. In this case, for the worse, because the guy turns out to be an asshole. There are some topics here that are very interesting for me. For example, empowerment, especially for women. What is her situation there because of her age? She's much younger than him. There's other topics like being consensual sex relationships. Is it really being consensual given the age difference and given that she's slightly drunk, like she's tipsy? There are other topics related to what may be ideological, or I don't know how to call it, like a way of thinking or understanding the world that may be misogynistic, or at least not good for women. So they brings out there a lot of topics that may be a very good, like bringing all of us a discussion that we all have in our inner selves. So overall, I think that the story was really good, really good. And no surprise that it went viral, because it touches a lot of different topics that are very interesting. So now that we have all said our opinions of the story, anyone wants to start with something about it?
Yeah, I wanted to say that one of the reasons it went viral is, and I don't know if it was the point of the author, is to say why, like we all thought it was normal, why should this be normal? Yeah, why should it be considered normal to behave in this way? Like now it's you know, all this, it was just before the Me Too and everything, you know, she should be able to say no whenever she wants. You know, and I don't know, this is what made me, I mean, maybe a much younger person reading this will really feel that, you know, she had the right to do, well, you know, to just ignore him, to say, no, look, I'm going home, I don't want you anymore. And of course, being tipsy and the age difference is an argument in that favor, yeah, the consent. That I don't know, it's complicated, but then again, we get all this, I'm a woman, I feel the information is from a woman's point of view, you know, but I wondered maybe this situation has come about on the contrary, like, you know, a man trying to make the woman feel better if he sees she's insecure, you know, and deciding that he doesn't really like her, but he might as well go through with it. I don't know, I'd like to think the better of the male half of the species, that they also have this almost empathic feeling, you know, in a bad situation.
I wanted to say as well that I don't think there's necessarily like the need to say who's to blame in this story. Like for me, like it's a typical story where two people meet each other and they think they were going to be great as a couple, and turned out it doesn't necessarily. I mean, in this case, the girl like realized the guy is not like she imagined. Like I don't think there's such a drama in this story. Like I don't understand the controversy in this story, but I totally get the ending of the story, like the fear of the girl. I think there's still this stigma in women, even today, even young women, that you have to, I don't know, do some things or concede some things in order to not be called a slut by people, by society. I mean, I think that's a very ongoing topic.
Well, I think the story brings up a lot of important points, and I don't know if she had an audience in mind to reading it, but I mean, I think it's giving a voice to this young woman and to all young women, and bringing up things that maybe men don't even consider or would never consider, like the fact that she, when they're sitting in the car, is like, oh my God, is he gonna murder me? Like, and that's a thought that if you've not been a woman, like, I don't think it would ever occur to you that that's what we think, because why would it? Because it's crazy. But she's in a vulnerable position. She's in a car. Yeah, she can say no anytime, but she's in his car. She's in his house. He is more physically powerful than her. If she's going to say no, she has to figure out how she's going to escape the situation. And this constant, not fear, but awareness that you're in the vulnerable position, that's always there, even if the guy wasn't a horrible person and like weird and terrible from the beginning. Even if he was like a normal person, those thoughts would still be there at the back of your mind. And I don't know, some other stuff, like, yeah, during the sex scene that she's like, well, I don't really want to have sex with him, but it's kind of too late now. Like, what am I going to do? I can't say no now. Like, I don't know if people have an awareness that other people do that. And I don't know, I just think that a lot of it was, yeah, giving a voice to these constant concerns and thoughts and experiences that women, especially young women, have that maybe men don't, and the men can correct me on that if I'm wrong. So I think that was kind of the idea of the story, and I think that's why it was so popular, because it was giving voice to these things that a lot of half of the population we know and we've experienced, and let's put it out there. So
yeah, like,
Yes.
as a male, like I've always been surrounded by females, and like as in I have 3 sisters and I have a wife, and you know, but still I have to. It takes a story like this sometimes just to remind me a little bit, you know, what women feel. And as a man, you go in that protector mode, but you don't really understand how that feeling of vulnerability. But for a lot of the first half of the story, I felt she was really in control. I have like the story here in front of me, and it was like at one point she said the effect on him was palpable and immediate, and she felt as if she was petting a large, skittish animal, like a horse or a bear, skillfully coaxing it to eat from her hand. So there was a lot of power on her side at that point. And then I think our next line was, by her 3rd beer, she was thinking about what it'd be like to have sex with Robert. So it was, yeah, go ahead.
No, finish. Go ahead. I don't want to interrupt.
For me, it was, and I'm not saying that's not a reason for anything or anything like that, but it was, as a reader, I was going, whoa, that was, and I totally understood. I really, really understood what she was saying and feeling when she kind of was like, I don't really want to go through this now. If he had asked her at that point, look, if you don't want to go ahead with this, we don't have to, I think she would have said no. But as a reader, it was a big change in a short space of time, going from getting him to eat out of her hands to wanting sex to then not wanting it. But I think ultimately it was just 2 people that didn't really seem to know each other, even physically. She kept saying how surprised she was at his belly, their age, kind of just basic kind of details, and they kind of had their own language about cats and things like that, or kind of their own kind of Twitter or texting, but nothing really kind of, you know, deeper. So yeah, that's just kind of what I was thinking.
I want to pick up on what you were saying about when petting the skittish animal, and she's kind of soothing his ego or whatever. And to me, that's a very good example of what I was talking about too, that I don't think that she's in control. I think that that's a survival mechanism, that I'm vulnerable here because I'm kind of at this guy's mercy, and he's acting weird. He's like being standoffish, he's being weird, and I have to figure out how to pet the skittish animal before it kicks me in the face. So to me, that's the exact opposite, that he's very much in power there, and she has to kind of do this dance and figure out, how am I going to survive this situation? To me, it's a survival mechanism.
I have to agree with Brian here, in the sense that I think that the shift of power lands on her side in many, many moments in the story. I think that he develops feelings for her, and quite fast, and much more than her, and that gives her the leading side of things in many aspects. Like, he's constantly worried on how to impress her. Even in the movie he chooses, he tries to look like cool in front of her, like pretending to be something that he's not. He gets confused and hurtful and reacts as an asshole every time that he feels that he's losing the power in the relationship, because I really think that he loses it at some points. What I like from what you were saying, Mo, is that I think that the story draws very well the vulnerability of women on those physical moments, like inside the car or going through with the intercourse. because you can really feel and understand the momentum that is happening and how she feels unable to stop it. Like she could have said no at any moment, but it's very difficult, and the author describes it really well. And in the car, for example, when she's thinking, oh, this guy, I barely know him, like we just texted for a while, I don't know who he is, maybe he could murder me. And the moment, in the same moment, coincidentally, that she's thinking this, he says, I'm not going to murder you. And for a moment there, I think they have hope. Like I think they were going to connect because they were on the same page. They were aligned in the sense that he was feeling that she was uncomfortable with the situation. But then because he's sour and an asshole, then instead of starting chatting and being fun and having fun in the date, he remains in silence, making it even more awkward and more complicated and a bad experience. So yeah, I really like how the author described the vulnerability moments that she feels, and how even for men that we usually don't experience this with our physical danger, we even we can understand it very well.
It's interesting how even when this guy is like feeling vulnerable, like in all the story, even in that way, the girl is sometimes feeling vulnerable just for the physical aspect, just for the situation, because this guy is particularly in low self-esteem, like trying to impress her so much, trying to change himself in some ways, but even with this, still the girl sometimes feels really, really vulnerable.
I got a different impression completely, because I have to agree more with Mo. I don't think she was in power most of the time, but I don't think he was either. I don't think there was an imbalance of I didn't think there was an imbalance of power, but I did think that he was, for the first half of the story, he was acting very standoffish, he was like ghosting her in a way because he was like being downplaying their relationship and being very I don't know, he had an attitude that to me screamed, you have to come after me because I'm worth it. and she was overly accommodating to him. She was all the time trying to do what she thought he might want her to do and say and do. And I don't think that's healthy, because neither from his part or from hers, because when you're trying to get to know one another, you have to be yourself, because otherwise you can't know if you're trying too hard to connect with someone who isn't worth it, like this case, or if there's truly a connection and you're truly compatible. Because I think in this case she tries too hard to accommodate to him at first, but then she realizes he's not worth it that much. I think the turning point is when she realizes, yeah, there's details of his physical aspect she doesn't like, and she doesn't like. He's a very lousy kisser, so she doesn't like that at all. So I think that's the moment when she starts to think, this isn't worth it at all. What am I doing here? I'm doing all these things and trying to accommodate this person that isn't worth my time. And I think he realizes that, and I think it's not something men do, but something people do. There are people that want others to go and chase them and try to make them fall in love with them and try to charm them, and they just want to be pampered, they just want to be loved. They don't want to do anything for the other person, they just want to receive. I think this guy is one of these type of people that just wants to be liked and loved, but not do anything in turn. So I think she realizes that and just says, well, it's not worth it, bye. and I think it was the wise choice to do. I think sometimes we encounter these type of persons and they're not really worth the effort or the feelings. That's what I thought, at least.
But I have to insist that the thing is, it's so normal. At first, she doesn't know whether she likes him or not, but she wants to make him feel good. She wants to make him feel secure. She wants to make him feel happy. And that is what's so normal when it shouldn't be. As you say, they should each be their own person. She doesn't have to change. She in general, don't have to change how they act just so the male feels better. You know, that's and that is normal. We all thought it was a normal story. That's the thing that is maybe changing now in our day, and with younger generations, they don't see that as necessary.
I do not agree exactly with what you say, Jessica, because being in a relationship changed you. That's the good thing many times. Okay? It's not conditioning you, it's changing you. Of course, when you are with someone you are in love, in a good mood, okay, you change, you behave, you care for the other person. Okay?
This is not a relationship.
It's about, yeah, no, I mean, any kind of, even one night relationship is a relationship. Okay? Even one relationship for sex is a relationship. Okay? That could be the beginning of many things. Many people had a night of good sex and then a very long relationship after that. But most of them have the very sign of good or bad sex, and then nothing. Okay, this is the case. Okay, I made the experience of removing sex from equation here. Reading the story without paying so much attention to the sex intercourse, because maybe it can condition our understanding of the story. Okay, we got boy met girl, okay, girl met boy. Okay. Obviously, they are two different, okay, for many reasons. Okay, he is insecure, maybe for previous reason, for his personality, etc. She's also not experienced in this kind of relationships or people handling, okay. And they get to know each other a little bit. They have a period of time where they are only texting each other, just playing, okay. And both of them are comfortable with that, okay. The critical point is when they got together, they have a date. What happened after that? And they realize it doesn't work. Okay, yeah, they have sex. Yeah, but this is part of the date. I didn't put so much importance on the effect of the sex. Okay, obviously having sex with Robert allows Margot to know him better in different circumstances, and she's not comfortable, and she's going away. Okay, not only because how he is behaving during the sex, but also maybe I think she's more concerned about the other behavior of Robert, to be too much protective, treating her like a child. Okay, the moment she feels like everything is broken is after they have sex, when he kisses her in the forehead for the third time. Okay, after they had sex, she realized maybe he's treating her like a child, and she's not comfortable. She doesn't feel recognized or something, and she runs. Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. Feel free to interrupt me. I'm talking usually too much.
No. I was just gonna say maybe I'm just looking at this story from a simplistic point of view, but I think it's like I said, I laughed honestly when I read the entire story, especially the end. But I looked at two characters that they were very immature, insecure, and childish, all the way from the beginning all the way to the end. I think it was a funny story because she's super immature. She's a young girl. She is carefree, but at the same time she's acting like a child. She wants to be looked up like, oh yeah, this guy is like looking at me like, oh, I'm the best thing he has ever had. But at the same time, when she realizes he's not what I want, she goes and talks bad about him to her friends, and the whole story behind, I don't want to talk to him. And so obviously she's acting like a child, hurting his feelings. And at the end, he reacts to that as well, by texting her. So I think I can see two characters, super childish, super immature, super insecure about each other. Because why would if I was 20, why would I hang out with a 34-year-old man? I'm sorry. And if I'm 34 or 30, whatever he was, why would I want to date a 20-year-old girl? I mean, I don't know. I see a lot of differences between them, but I think for both of them, it was more like, oh, we're both childish, we're both insecure, we're both immature. So it was like basically the perfect storm, and that's what happened. It was a sad story with a very funny connotation.
Yeah, that's absolutely the point, in my opinion. The thing is that I want to know better the reason he is insecure. Okay, because we don't know exactly. Obviously, bad experience or just his personality. Obviously, we can assume that she is insecure because he's young. If we can call young a 20-year person, okay, because now obviously now I'm 46, 47. I can think she's very young, obviously. But when I was 40, a 20 years old woman was a mature woman for me, you know. So there are the different approaches, depends on how do you feel. And obviously both of them are insecure, deeply insecure, okay, by different reasons. Obviously when two persons that are insecure are looking security in the other person, okay, they are not going to find that. So obviously they crash. And it's the only point is that maybe because his experience, he's trying to refuse going forward with the relationship with her, or asking her many questions, or not kissing her in the first time she wanted to be kissed. He kissed her in the forehead. I don't know. There are some things that he was like avoiding to go. By one side, he was trying to go close to her, but in the other side, he's not running from her. So both of them are somehow playing with the situation. Okay, she enjoys. She's acting quite childish, playing with texting, etc. With that role play with the cats, talking to the other cats, etc. In the text. But he's also playing with her. Okay, maybe we can blame him because obviously he should be based on his experience, his responsibility to know what does he want. But I think they are hurting each other in the same level of bad perception, in my opinion. Okay,
I have to disagree with that completely because he is a 35-year-old adult. And she is a 20-year-old. I don't want to say child because I don't want to be insulting to 20-year-olds, but she's very young. She's a university student. She's just
trying not to get offended.
Experience life, yes. 20-year-olds are fantastic, but you don't have the life experience of a 34-year-old. And I'm sorry, but acting immature and not expressing what you need or what you want, that's perfectly normal for a young adult because you're just figuring out how to navigate the world. By the time you're 35, if you are in this position where you don't know how to communicate with people, that's on you for not like having figured that out in the past 30 years of your life. And I don't know. I mean, I read this story very, very differently than a lot of you. I don't know, it's because of my personal experiences or because I spend too much time on the internet or something. But like, I don't see this as a story of, and I don't think it was the author's intention to see this as a story of two people meeting and figuring out they're incompatible. I think she is representing a very particular type of man and a very particular type of misogyny that's sort of popular now. This sort of nice guy, which is even she even says that in the story that, oh, he's a nice guy, sort of. And I think your mind is supposed to be to go to this kind of culture, and if you're not familiar with the culture or whatever, then it's maybe lost. But it's a tale of a guy who I don't know, he lives like the idea of that women should be dolls, and that now I'm going to go out and now I'm interacting with an actual woman and she's not acting like a doll, and I don't know how to handle that, and so I'm going to like pull back and then call her a whore. Like, to me, it's not like, oh, these two normal people met and they were like, oh, well, I like cats and I like dogs, so we're not going to have a relationship. I don't know. I don't see it, and I don't think that's why it went viral, and I don't think that was the intention of the author at all. I think it was meant to represent this very specific brand of sexism that.
Yeah, I'm not sure with due respect, Mo, I'm not sure if you've been prejudicial with Robert, okay? Because we don't know much about him.
I know everything about him because I know this man. I've met this man many times. I see this man in politics. I see this man as a celebrity. I see this man online. I know him. I know him perfectly.
That's the reason I say you are being prejudicial. Because you are assuming this man are like others, you know.
Yeah,
but
because
what do we know?
With the thing he does in the story, you can tell he's a creepy guy. Like, he stuck her. Like,
well, I agree. I absolutely agree. He's creepy. Okay, I don't have to say anything.
He's a stalker.
I'm not sure. I mean, he's not well. Okay, that's first thing. He's insecure. He's creepy. I agree. I agree with that. But he's not hiding. He's not hiding either of those things, because what we know from him are things that are shared with her at the same time. We don't know if he has been having a long story of relationships, or maybe he was virgin with 34. We don't know that. We don't know that. We don't know nothing about his experience. And some of you are assuming that he's a sexual predator almost. I don't know. He behaves strange during having sex, quite violent, in my opinion. Okay. Some people would say that's a role play. Obviously, in the first date or the first sex intercourse with a couple, you must be quite careful with what your behavior and how you treat the other person. But here we are assuming too many things about him that we don't really know. We know he's been trying to engage with her too fast. He's been taking time. He's been running away from her at some point. He doesn't want to kiss her the first time when obviously we knew she wanted to be kissed, for example. He's asking her about the age. He's concerned about the age. He's asking before start having sex, making that silly question, have you done this before? Okay. In my opinion, that's not the behavior of a sexual predator or sexual abuser. Okay.
I don't think anybody said he was, but he's a misogynistic creep. I mean, that's very clear from the story.
No, I mean, you don't like him. Okay. My question is.
I mean, that's an understatement.
No. But my question is, do we understand that Margot needs to have sex with him to realize that she doesn't like him? Or maybe she knew she didn't like him, and she even at that point she had sex with him at that point. Because my perception is that there was one moment in the story after
didn't like sex, it and she had sex with him.
In my opinion, the plot moment was the moment after they have sex. I told you, what do we do now? And then she thinks, let's kill ourselves. She realizes she has made a mistake at that moment after having sex. So she need that experience to realize that person is not for him.
She realizes long before that that person is not for her, but she doesn't want to hurt his feelings. So she goes through with it. And this is normal.
But he's giving him the chance. He's asking, have you ever done this before? Blah 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 blah. Okay. So she's giving the chance of that. I wouldn't say he took advantage of the situation, but I'm not sure if he took advantage of the situation willingly. That's my concern here.
Okay.
So can I ask you a question just to maybe change because no, Louisa, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm containing myself. Okay. I think he's very insecure,
Absolutely.
He's very inexperienced, especially
Mhm.
sexual inexperience. I think the
Absolutely.
only experience that he knows about porn, the way that she kisses her.
Mhm.
And that's why, is one of the reasons why he chose a 20-year-old girl. Because she's naive, because she's going to try to be nice. And I'm not blaming him all the time, because both of them, they have a very superficial conversation. They don't know each other. They have their imagination. They create this marvelous relationship that they think that the other person is like that, and it's not,
Mhm.
because it happens a lot in this kind of situation with you don't know the other person. But you have to keep that she's 20 and he's 35. Yeah, as soon as he realized that she's 20, he should try to behave differently. But because he doesn't behave differently, is because basically he's insecure and he searched for a girl, and she's like that. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's my
No, I
opinion.
agree. I agree with
And
you. I
I'm
mean,
sorry, there were other like big red flag when he asked her about her break. He is like, "Oh my God, but did you meet your ex-boyfriend or something?" And she was like, "What are you talking about?"
he's digging. He's flirting. I mean, his main mistake is not running away from that situation, from being in front of the girl. Okay,
But
that's his
I
main
think that's
mistake.
very common. Like I have had these kind of experiences where you're trying to
Mhm.
make the relationship work when you have to realize that it's not gonna work, and you meet these
Mhm.
like red flags all the time. Like it's very
It's curious
common.
that the moment of the relationship of the story, they feel more comfortable with each other is the moment they are not in direct contact, where the break period where they are texting only. Looks like that's the moment they really enjoy being in contact. Okay, once she returns after the break and they organize that date, etc., is when everything is going maybe too fast, and obviously they go to the final crash of the accident or that situation. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I mean, here it's not a matter of blaming any of them, in my opinion. I wouldn't blame. They should be responsible of each other. Maybe, obviously, he has more experience. He should be more responsible. But I wouldn't say a 20-year-old person is absolutely a baby or a child that needs something. Obviously, I mean, maybe in the United States he cannot go to drink alcohol, but in many countries he can vote. Okay, so obviously there must be some common sense we must expect some common sense from him dealing with the situation, trying maybe to avoid harder the situation. He tried to avoid establishing contact, not hard enough, because his insecurity makes him to need that kind of attention. Okay, and that's maybe we can blame him because of that. Okay.
So who was to
But
blame for
that's
him
very,
sending her a
very
text
far.
message calling her a whore?
No, the end.
Of course.
That's I would say.
Because they're gonna say, "Oh, they're both the same." Okay, I'm sorry, but no. Like,
obviously,
because throughout the text, we cannot forget that
end of
there
the
are a lot
story.
of little snippets of hidden misogynistic thoughts. Like not only the fact that their age difference, but also, and I don't think we mentioned it, and for me it's one of the main points of the story, because it was one of the main things that made me realize, okay, this guy this guy sucks. And it was when he asked her about her sex life, and like, but are you having sex with her? Have you had sex before? And she's like, yeah, what's the matter?
No, she laughed.
Yeah, she laughed, but she was like, yeah, but she was weirded out because she wasn't expecting that, and that's completely not inappropriate. But in that context, it comes off as condescending, like, I don't want you to, but have you? And I think the toxicity here derives from many men having this idea, this thought, this ideal of woman. Like, I want a woman who's good in bed, like in porn, but I also want her to be a virgin, so that I can be the one that is with her and has her and she's mine. And it's like, no, it doesn't work like that. A guy is the best if he gets a lot of women in his bed, but a girl is a slut if she gets a lot of people in her bed. It doesn't work like that, and there's these different standards, double standards for both men and women, especially young people, that are not fair, and there are incompatibilities that they don't sort out. We can see that Robert doesn't want her to have had sex with her guys, this fixation with this ex-boyfriend that only exists in his head, this high school boyfriend she has gone back to that doesn't even exist, and he doesn't have any reason to believe that he exists. And this questions of, oh, but are you really that young, and but have you had sex with other men? They're not incompatible. You can be young and have sex with lots of people and still respect your body and still want to be in a serious relationship. It's not a contradiction, but to him, I think, for to his prejudices and his already established conceptions, there are contradictions that he's unable to reconcile. So he's very confused, and he's like, oh, but have you gone back to your ex-boyfriend because I want to be with you, but then I blow you up for a while, but then you need to have things more clear if you want to be in a relationship with someone, or even trying to like date or casually.
Something to say. So, which is, I agree that Robert is a deeply flawed person. I have a question for people here. It's just the detail in the text that I was wondering about. So, 3 times in the story, he makes this feminine whine, right? So, they're making out in the car. He makes these moans that she thinks are too melodramatic, right? And then they do it again, and she's like, well, I guess he's turned on, so that's kind of nice. And I'm getting turned on by that. And later when they're making love, the character Margot describes it as a feminine whine, right? And so what do you think is the significance of the author using the term feminine in his sound? And what do you think that conveys about, the gender norms that Margot has?
It's an interesting question, because I was about to ask a question. Was anyone surprised by the last word, which for me in English is kind of stronger than the Spanish version. It's a very strong way to finish, and I felt he was a loser. I felt he was insecure. I agree with a lot of the points made, but it was quite, I didn't expect him to use that word. And maybe in line with what Clark is saying, there was a certain softness with him. I thought he was trying so hard to be cool. He was trying to have this red vines thing, like a guy out of the Casablanca movie, kind of up at the bar smoking some distinctive cigarette. I felt he was just over-trying, insecure, but I felt that last word was like super strong. And then as Clark was saying, there was these kind of feminine kind of whines throughout. So I'd also ask, along with Clark's question, was anyone surprised by the strength of the last word that he used in contrast with these kind of feminine noises that she was kind of giggling inwardly kind of had as well?
I have a theory.
Sorry, Ale, go on, please.
Well, it's just a nonsense. I have a theory that this guy, Robert, has a friend that takes his phone and puts horror. And yes.
I'm sorry as well. Like, he's gonna have like a roommate or something.
Yeah.
No, I don't buy that theory. That would be fun. But I actually, answering Brian's question, I actually was expecting something like that. That I think that pattern of behavior of these very insecure, lacking any kind of confidence people, when they get rejected or hurt, is like to attack back, insulting and trying to make the other person feel bad because they feel rejected. So I was thinking that it was going that way. I see some of the things that you have said about the power imbalance because of the age, I don't see so much this internet culture thing, because for me this could be a universal story in many different ways. Like, I think that this was there before the internet, or this subculture, this that we have seen. Like, I have lived experience like this when I was younger, and all these pick-up artist movement and stuff didn't exist. All these red pill things about men acting misogynist and spreading this ideology didn't exist. And still people would get jealous when the people they liked went like radio silence for a while and say, no, are you seeing someone else? Like, very jealous people will ask something like, are you fucking this other person? And I think in this point, not only men, but also women can be very jealous and start asking questions about who are you seeing, who are you with, what are you doing? And I also think that the last reaction, this feeling hurt and then attack back, is so common in people that are not mature enough or healthy enough to just accept a rejection, that I see this as an universal in human interactions in many different ways.
I wasn't surprised by the final text message or the final word, because I think that it's something that I've seen that you could have copy pasted from, like we were saying before, from Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, that you can go on there right now and go ahead and look for creepy texts, and you'll see 1,000 exchange, or nice guys, and you'll see 1,000 exchanges that are exactly this, where it's the woman doesn't respond fast enough, or she rejects the guy, and he's, well, you're a whore, you're a slut, you fuck other guys, you don't want to fuck me because your vagina is too loose. All of these type of insights that go directly towards a woman who has sex with someone that's not me is a whore. And I think the word, it was interesting, actually, Adriana and I were talking about it yesterday, the word whore, because I don't know how it comes across if to a non-native speaker. I mean, to me, the word is very specific. Like, normal people don't go around using the word whore, like, unless you're from the 14th century or something. So to me, the fact that he uses the word whore tells me exactly who he is, if I didn't know already, and that it's this very specific subculture of guys on 4chan or whatever the internet sites are, that every woman is a whore because they want to sleep with a football player, and they're so shallow, and they don't like us nice guys. They only want to have sex with these football players, and that makes them whores. And so to me, this was in the front of his brain the entire time, and then she just proved it by rejecting him. It's like, yep, I was right, she's a whore, and that's the first word that comes out of his phone or his mouth. So for me, it was not surprising. It was very specifically chosen by the author to take you to that place, I think.
Yeah, the word is kind of an insult word. Like, I'm very angry because I don't have any luck with women, so I lash out and try to put them down. But I don't think it's also, I think that attitude can also be found in women, because I think, of course, I think it's as common, at least in my experience. But there's this attitude that some insecure people have when trying to flirt with others, or trying to date other people, or in their romantic relationships, that's trying to put the other person down, because you don't think that person otherwise will have enough self-esteem to go out with you. And I think that doesn't understand of genders. Some women do it too, but I do think there's a specific type of men that really uses it as a weapon, knowing exactly what it entails. This person is older. I think people, old men who go out with younger women and try to pull this on them, because I think they know they can do this and be more successful if they do that to younger women than to older women. I think they use it. They use these methods knowing that they have more chance of succeeding if they pull it on a person who's younger, whom they think they have less experience, and I think that makes it worse in a way than just insecure people that have this as a natural response. I think it's worse if you're deliberately using it to put yourself above somebody, to manipulate them in a way. But I don't think in this story I think this story tries to show that, and I think it does so quite effectively. This kind of attitude some people have, especially men, trying to put others down and then lashing out when it doesn't work, because in this case it doesn't, and he's angry and that he has tried to be gentle, trying to be this nice guy, and it hasn't worked, and he's very frustrated, and that's the only way he can win this frustration he feels.
So are you talking about, for example, when he comes back the second time and to the movie theater and he says, "You're more polite to me this time"? Is that
also? But I think it wasn't on a specific moment, but also right from the beginning of the story, how their interactions start to go by. His kind of general attitude, not really. He tries to come off as a nice guy, but he isn't right from the start. He isn't attentive. He isn't. Of course, she isn't overly healthy either in her romantic prospects. But I do think she accommodates him. But she realizes that his actions. She sometimes mentions that. She doesn't know what she did wrong, or that she thinks she shouldn't have said that, and that's why he's upset. So she's going to say this to try and make the situation better. She's the one overly trying, to me. But it's true that we only get her point of view, so he may be trying to, but I didn't get that feeling at all. It seems like he's just trying his luck, and if it works, okay. If not, you're a whore and you're not worthy of my time.
But I think the end portrays a very specific misogynist element, and it's that no matter there are certain type of men, misogynist men, that no matter how many flaws, let's gonna say this way, how many flaws and negative things they have, they always gonna think they have the right to judge every woman, because they think women are less than there, no matter how bad they are. So I think that's what's in the story.
I think obviously his personality is very insecure, okay, and that's the big thing here, okay. Robert is a very insecure person, and that leads him to become some kind of creepy person in the way he behaves. And he's acting like, obviously, watching porn quite frequently, behaving during the sex relationship. At some point, like if it was a porn movie, at some other points he behaved like if he were with her daughter. Obviously, he's not well because of his deep insecurity. Okay, and I think she's not so insecure. Okay, because when she leaves him, okay, I don't feel she feels guilty for leaving him. He cares about him. He doesn't want to hurt him, but she doesn't feel guilty. She doesn't have to be guilty because she's not the one to blame at all. Okay, but that makes me think that maybe she's more mature at some point than him regarding this. And the end of the story, okay, the behavior, very, very childish behavior of him, okay, it's not surprising me. It was shocking, but it's not surprising me because it's quite obvious many times, okay. You can say that hate is the only feeling that can bury any other feeling. You can cover anything you can feel with hate. Okay, even children, when they got angry with her mother, they say, "I don't love you anymore." Okay, that's the same thing. It's a very childish behavior of him. Okay, matches, of course. Okay, and the best things he can do is not answering, of course. Okay, so there is matching, of course, and abuse at some point. Okay, but the point here is how deeply insecure is him, and how more secure Margot becomes after this experience. This is for Margot. This is one life experience that eventually will make her a more secure and mature person. Okay. Unfortunately, he is not learning from this experience. At least what we saw in this story. That's the thing at the end of the story, that she's learning from what happened, and he's not.
What did you guys think was the significance? Sorry, if anyone else wants to talk about this, I was going to change the topic a little bit, but if anyone wants to jump in. Okay. What did you think was the significance of the title and the cats? Because it's called Cat Person.
I was wondering.
And
yeah, I have no idea.
It's like a plot point, like, does he have cats, or like what was the
what happened with the cats?
For me, my personal interpretation, because I don't really know what's going on with the cats, is that he's trying the entire story until then trying to fake something that he's not. And the fact that we don't even know if the cats really exist, like she thinks maybe the cats exist, maybe they are in another room, I don't know. I think that it adds to it. Like maybe he was making the cats up, like maybe they don't really exist, and he was just trying to connect somehow or faking something that is not real, which is what happens in the story, that everything crumbles and falls apart because it's faking, it's not real.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a symbolism. Go ahead, please.
Well, when they go into his house, right, they drive up to his house and it's got the nice sparkly lights, and he says to her, I'm warning you, I have cats. Like, I feel like he wouldn't say that unless he actually had cats. For me, I don't know, there were several things, like I'm still thinking about the thing, that her description of his wine is feminine. I don't know, like, I thought maybe he was like a cat in some ways. I don't know if you know this, but there are a series of movies, American movies from in the 1940s called Cat People, like Revenge of the Cat People, Attack of the Cat People. In these movies, like, a man makes love to a glamorous woman and then she turns into a cat and kills him. I don't think it's, there's that silliness that was there for me. I'm sure, maybe that's extraneous, but anyway, no, I thought he probably had cats, and the title was just a playful title.
I got two theories about the title, okay? Because either he has cats and he falls into the stereotype of, person, mature, living alone, having cats, being socially clumsy, that could be him, something that he has only relationship with cats because he's not good dealing with people. That could explain. But then there are the creepy interpretations that comes to my mind. He doesn't have any cats, and he's behaving like he's having cats just to flirt with her. Okay, that will make him a very bad person, just with a single detail. That's in my opinion. Okay, because he's trying to lie to her and manipulate her from the beginning. That's the two interpretations I have for that.
I think it's kind of a...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just, I think it's kind of a symbolism that, is there something good about this relationship? And we don't know, the girl doesn't know, the girl doesn't find any cats. That was my interpretation.
What I was going to say is that I gave it another interpretation at the end. The title to me means two selfish people that they don't know how to care for one another. And because that's what cats are, you know, they just like you when you treat them well, but they don't give a damn about you. You know, they're selfish. They're selfish animals. I mean, I like them. I really like them. I have a cat, but he only comes to me and loves me when I, you know, take care of him. So
you are cat
pet. That I gave to the title. You know, the title is Cat People. Okay, well, yes, they're immature, they're selfish. They just don't know how to emotionally, or they're not emotionally mature, basically. That's what I thought. It was called Cat People.
Mm-hmm. I agree. When you have a cat, you are not, the cat is not your pet, you are the pet of the cat.
Right.
You're the cat's
you
human.
you are he's or her
human.
human. Okay. Yeah. I had a cat, and and that's the way our relationship was. You know? He was waking me up for food and approaching me when he needs something. That's all. I mean, it was, of course, good for me. I like it, but it is what it is. Okay. And many relationships are based on this kind of short dependency. That sometimes works, but most of the time doesn't work. Maybe it's only working with cats or with cat people.
Can I ask another question similar to Mo's? I'm still trying to figure out why this was so popular, and I get it. Like, we've been speaking for over an hour, and has the polemica. It's something controversial and back and forth. But I think, Mo, as you were also saying, you can find forums and threads and stories and texts very, very similar, telling very, very similar stories. So was this just, I don't know, like the right story at the right time? Like, if I was the editor of the New Yorker, I'm not too sure I would have been like brave enough to say, yeah, this is the one, this is going to be worth it, I believe in this. I don't know how someone could tell that this is going to be viral. And in hindsight, we can look at this and look at that, but if you had this in front of on your desk, how could you tell that this was going to be viral? I think we've all agreed the writing is really good at times, but what maybe separates this from maybe other articles that are out there that I haven't read?
I still don't get it, honestly. Like, it's like what I say. Like, for me, like, yeah, maybe there are like this kind of story in social media, maybe they get viral because this kind of debate. I was thinking all the time about the ending. I was thinking all the time about Twitter trolls. Like, it's a thing that a troll would say. Like, I don't know. I mean, and I think that's why we sometimes read this kind of story in social media, because they generate a lot of debate. But as a story, like with value about the style and the how it's written, I don't know. I still don't get it.
Yeah. Well, it's very hard to tell why some stories suddenly go viral and get famous if they are very similar to other stories. But I happen to see often happening in literature, in movies, in art in general, that they are the product of the culture of the time. Like this story on the 2017, when it was published in 2017, it was in the climax of the Me Too movement, when everybody was claiming, women were claiming this happened to me too, and it was published at that time. So it's probably at the time, and many other stories could have came up at the same time, but this one for some reason hit the spot. I think it touches very universal topics, but at the moment it also correlated with what was happening then. One little thing before we keep talking about this, because I wanted to add something about the title of the cat person. I found very interesting what Catherine was saying about how cats behave. And the idea that when you give them what they want, you give them food, you treat them well, you pet them if they want to be pet, then they act nicely and they are the best in the world. But if you don't give them what they want, they become evil beings, right? And I think that's what happened to this guy in the story. Like, he's nice when he gets what he wants, but then he becomes an asshole when he doesn't. And the parallelism is very good. Sorry, back to the why this story got viral.
So I
agree with what you said earlier about the time, because I think without the context of the Me Too movement in 2017, this wouldn't have gotten as much attention as it got. It's not shaming the story, but as we've all agreed, I think it's more of a story shared from friend to friend more than any literary masterpiece. I think it's because of its context and its time. I think it was published in a time and day that everyone was talking about this very same topics and very concerned, socially concerned about this attitudes, these everyday things that happen to women. And I think that's why people were very, also because of this very casual style, people were very identified with this story, mostly women, and that's why I think it got everyone talking about it. But I don't think it's only because of the story's value, but also because of timing, perfect timing.
So I'll say something. I'll just do a hyperbole, a more extreme statement. But let's compare this to Jane Austen, right? Like, there are many similar qualities, right? I mean,
as a Jane Austen fan, I'm offended.
It's sort of an hyperbole.
No, but I'm interested in this.
Allow him to proceed.
I think we can all agree Robert is no Mr. Darcy. Okay? He's not a handsome British gentleman that's going to sweep your feet like in the Keira Knightley movie. He's not. I think that's the first thing I wanted to say.
Okay, all right, yeah.
Sorry, keep going.
Why women like Mr. Darcy so much, but I just posted another story from 2018. So that's the one this story most reminded me of. So it's this story that was published in a magazine called Babe, and it's about how it's this woman who describes the sexual encounter she had with an Indian-American comedian named Aziz Ansari. As a result of the story, he had to kind of pull out of his TV show for some time, right? And like, compared to that story, like this story, the other story is nonfiction. This story is much more, there's much detail and nuances of feeling, right? Like, there are all these exchanges and conversations, just like when you read Pride and Prejudice, you read that line over again. It's like, what did Mr. Darcy mean when he said that? Or what did Elizabeth mean, right? Or like, there's all this discussion of what the dialogue makes the characters feel, right? When Jessica was here, she talked about, the emotional labor that, that Margot has to do, right? And I think, like, you think about, like, if you just look at, there's one exchange about, like, the movie they're going to see on this date, right? He suggests they do a Holocaust movie, and she tests him back, "Lo, you serious?" And then she says, "Oh, I was joking. Maybe it's not to your taste. We can do something else, right?" And then later on, she thinks that maybe I was too rude. So all those things, like, those are really interesting details, right? It makes you think. Well, in that scene, he's actually doing some kind of thinking about what she might like, and being a little vulnerable and conceding he might have suggested the wrong movie, and then she is doing this interesting labor to try to placate him, as we discussed, right? And so all those things are there, and the characters for me are believable. Yeah, obviously, the language is not as felicitous and flowery and subtle, but like, just like when you read a Jane Austen sentence, like there's a twist and turn, and you're like, what did they actually mean? Were they being ironic? All that is there in some way, and that's what makes a story interesting and entertaining, as well as, it touches the nerve, right? It connects people's emotions. So that's why I think it became viral.
Yeah, I kind of see this. Like, I think this story, as many other romantic books or books that talk about human beings interacting without similar keys. There are key points in how we interact with other human beings, and there are universal and atemporal. There are not concrete or specific to a certain location or time, but that happened to humans since they've been mating since the beginning of time. And I think that maybe that's one of the reasons that Jane Austen and this story, even if apparently they don't have anything in common, touts the same kiss.
Maybe in 1 century, like people read this story and oh, that's what the relationships were back then. How interesting! But
I
now,
hope this doesn't
I
become...
have to agree with Mo. Like I have lived this kind of very similar situation, so I don't enjoy reading this. Obviously,
I did enjoy it in a way, but I sure hope it doesn't become a classic of universal literature as Jane Austen's works have. I do think we have better things to offer in the 21st century. Not to bash the author.
I think that if the literary style was more complex, you couldn't have gone viral. I mean, it's the thing that it's very natural that it makes it go viral. You share it by WhatsApp group, you share it to people that don't usually read because it's like a Twitter thread. And so we can expect too much of a viral story, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to emulate that style. Sorry. I think it's meant to emulate that style. If I was the publisher offering her $1 million, I would want to read something else by her too, to make sure it was a choice and not that that's just her writing style. But because even like the article that Clark linked, it's a very similar style, right? It's kind of this online journalism, personal story. It's like, it's written in that style, and I guess that was intentional. That's how it's supposed to be. It's not, if it was written in very flowery language, it would be a completely different story, and I don't think it would be as effective.
Yeah, like maybe they want to hop on in this trend, like, you know, they see how viral some tweets or some stories could get, and they are, oh, we want that kind of thing for literature as well. I don't know. But I was thinking, like, just the other day I came across with the story. It was like very similar. Well, not very similar, but it was like the same kind of. It was about a girl who posted like a sexy selfie or whatever, and her boyfriend started to receive a lot of messages about, oh, look at your girlfriend, what he's doing and everything. And she was the one telling the story. And she said like her boyfriend broke with her because of that. And they were obviously, it was like the same about the story. They were all always obviously people, men and women, saying, oh, but you kind of deserve it. Like, what were you doing, like posting like that? Like, so I was like, oh my God. I mean, it's the saying of this story, honestly.
To me, this story reminded me of an article I read not too long ago, which told a story that had a funny ending, like much like this one in a way, because you're reading the context of this story and you're like, yeah, now she's blowing him off, and then he's clapping back, and it's like, yeah, this bantering. But this story happened in real life, and for me it showed that this is not a modern thing, because it happened in the 2000s, the early 2000s, the story that the article was describing. I think it was in the United States, can't remember, but a big city. And a woman went out, the woman that told the story to the world, was I think in a disco or something like that, in a club, and she was approached by this guy, and they really hit it off. They had a connection, so they exchanged phone numbers, because at that time social media didn't exist. So this man, that was called Dimitri, decided to call her right the next day and she thought it was too soon, so he called a few times, and she left him and she let him go to voicemail. She didn't want to talk to him that soon, and she was like, yeah, I'll contact him later. So this guy only called her 2 times a day after he met her, but he felt entitled enough to leave her a voicemail 25 minutes long, telling her what he wanted in a woman, and saying things like, you're very inconsiderate to blow someone off after giving them your number. And he proceeded to say that he was a doctor, he was a catch, he earned thousands of dollars, and that she would be very stupid to pass up on a guy as wonderful as he was. But he said, I might forgive you if you told me that you had a family emergency, someone close to you died, or you have any sort of medical problems and you're in the hospital, then I understand you blowing off my calls. But the thing is, I'm going to leave it up to you. I'm going to erase my phone from your number from my phone, and you are the one who has to contact me, and I will decide after you call 2 or 3 times, the same times you blow me off and you ignore me, if I decide to call you again. So this woman was very creeped out by this and thought it was a very horrible attitude to have, and she posted it online in the anachronic internet of the early 2000s. The thing is, this went viral for the time, and people found Dimitri, and they started bullying him, and the hospital had to ended up firing him because they didn't want their image associated with such a man, and so he lost his $1,000 job he was so proud of, and he got his home vandalized with a lot of graffiti taking sentences out of his voicemail because everyone heard it, and even though they both lived in a very large city, people found him and were so angry at him, women and men the same, because he was so entitled by doing that, and so such an arrogant prick that everyone hated him and everyone laughed at him at the moment. And I read it like maybe 20 years have gone since then, and I think that still happens, and that has always happened. It's as Adrian said before about some parts of Romance literature. It's a temporal. It always happens. And people like that exist and never go extinct, despite us.
I think that if someone is emotionally immature and is not very healthy mentally and is maybe very desperate or very lonely and has this, I don't know, this need of being with someone, they can become very obsessive very fast. And this story that you're describing of Dimitri is like a big example, very dramatic example of this. But I think that happens to many people in different magnitudes. And actually, in the story, Robert, after they have sex, what he does is discuss his feelings for Margot in an uncomfortable detail. It's like going too much, too fast, immediately after sex. So yeah, I think that's very common and happens a lot. In this story that you're telling is like, wow, 25 minutes message.
I think the difference is that, sure, these people have always existed that maybe were lonely or socially awkward and don't have any real experience with actual people. So they have these ideas of how people operate that are not true. But I think the difference now, and as we see in this story, is that now they can find each other online. Like, you don't have to have social skills to interact with other people now. I say now, I mean in the past 20 years or whatever. But so they encourage each other, and it kind of grows and snowballs. That maybe if you were a lonely person pre-internet, you would kind of have to figure it out because you don't have any other option to survive. But now you can go and find a bunch of other people who have similar experiences, and you can all tell each other, yeah, no, it's not you, it's them. No, it's not you. All women are whores. It's okay. You're perfectly fine. And, you know, you don't have this motivation to change because you're getting this feedback loop, and it just reinforces what you think. Whereas maybe before that, your mind might change, but if you're constantly being told, no, it's true, all women only want football players and you're perfectly nice and that's the only reason they don't like you, then that gets ingrained in your brain and there's no real motivation to change. So I think it's different now. I mean, you could say that about anything in any era. Like, technology changes how humans behave, but
yeah, in Spain we have like these forocoches who have created like their own like subculture.
Yeah.
They have like their own subculture now. It's
Forocoches is a legend, sadly.
Horrified by
like forocoches, for those of you that are not familiar with the Spanish culture, forocoches is the Spanish for chat.
Yeah, but it's even worse, in a way, because it's such a close-knit community. Everyone can post in 4chan anonymously, but in forocoches there's a waiting list like years long to get in, and it's so hombre rancios. How do I say hombre rancios in English? I can't think of a translation.
Brother-in-law.
What?
Brother-in-law.
Something like that, yeah. I think that encompasses it pretty well.
Oh, Jesus.
But yeah,
I think
it's just what they are. I remember.
I won't say this is something new, but before these kind of people went to a bar, and now they go to the internet, and now this is like a big supreme bar where everybody can talk at the same time. So yeah, I don't know if this is better or worse. I don't know.
Yeah, the bar was the natural habitat for this male, white male, alpha male styles. But now they have another place to flock to, like forocoches in Spain. I remember in some Spanish TV programs, it became one of their funniest segments became taking threads out of forocoches. Yeah, and it was very funny because it was the wildest things. And I remember one that was so funny. That was like a man saying like, I have a problem. My brother, my cousin has been disinherited by his father for being from Podemos. I was like, what the heck? Just for voting a certain political party, he had been disinherited, and he vented out to forocoches, and everyone was like supporting him, like, yeah, that's a dictatorship. You live in a sucky family. You have to get out of there. And I was like, what the hell? People are just venting their silly problems like it's everyone's business.
Last invent from forocoches has been an application, mobile application. It's actually a web page and application to do that's caceroladas. They can fake the noise of hitting the casserole just for.
Oh, and I remember they made a survey whether Spain should join again with Portugal or not. And the answers were pure gold. I remember there was one answer that I was like, I see you. I know what you're thinking. Well, of some forogotero that said, yeah, we can just join Spain, Portugal, and Greece and be the Hunger Games in real life. And I was like, they do have a very particular sense of humor.
Yeah, I think that the best thing that they did was when there was this commission in the Socialist Party like a couple of years ago that they got
That's the only one with things.
they got Pedro Sanchez out, so they sent pizzas to the commission. That was pretty fun.
And there was this time when they entered when they trolled a British contest to name a British ship. from the Navy. Didn't you hear about that?
No.
There was a public contest online made by the British Navy because they had just finished building a very big ship.
Oh yeah.
You remember that? It
Bodhi
was,
McBoat face.
big.
Yeah.
And they told it because
What
they
was
all
the name?
the most voted answer was the name of a Spanish official that had destroyed the British Navy. They had to cancel
I
This is
the
a
didn't hear
different
that
thing.
story.
In the
Yeah.
last
That was
Wow.
epic.
in the last election in Spain, they made a phone crossing to send a group of mariachis to the headquarters of Ciudadanos after their bad results. There are videos set just for the coaches,
They are the ones
mariachis.
sending the mariachi.
They sent to sing
Oh my God.
Sending mariachis there.
after
There
the very
were
terrible
one or
results.
two groups of mariachis. There were quite a lot.
Yeah, no, but there were another one in,
They were
in
paid by
El PP, I
they were
think.
paid by for coaches. No, it was Ciudadanos. No, actually, there were. I've seen videos here. Yeah, Genova, Pepe, and
Yeah.
also Ciudadanos, both of them. 11. No, they were in the elections of April. They sent to the Partido Popular headquarters, but in November they sent to Ciudadanos after the
They
bad
did
results.
both.
So they are looking for the real loser of the election, and they are sending the mariachis over there just to make them like that. So
But yeah, I think
4chan are much more better doing this kind of troll thing.
Yeah, they have much more power.
Like
But
they
what
can
was
ride
they don't care. They don't care against
It's
them.
I don't
international.
know what's
yeah,
4chan.
that's the thing. They are international. Anyone posts
4chan.
there and anonymously, and they are such a big community. There
That
are
was a
millions
forum.
of
Yeah,
people there
it's just
calling.
everything.
A forum for hacking. Initially, the difference is like in for coaches we have brotherly laws, but in 4chan initially there were kiddie hackers. But there were people, intelligent people at least, not like in for coaches, and they were
I don't know.
They're absent.
when someone very intelligent gets very bored.
One
it's
of
very
them
dangerous.
was the one that hacked Sarah Palin.
Sarah Palin?
They hacked a lot of people.
Yeah,
Also,
there
famous
was the-
Hollywood actresses, their phones for nudes and stuff like that.
Yeah, the what happened with this
Scarlett
big
Johansson,
thing
right?
that
Yeah.
all the photos got leaked.
Yeah. Ah, really? Wow.
Yeah, no, and they can do very harmful things. Like when they are
Yes.
doxing people, like dogs, like reveal real information of how someone is called, how someone looks, where someone lives in real life. They do very bad stuff to them, like to bring them dead animals and stuff like that to the real people because they have a conflict in the internet, or they don't like it, or they are just bored or whatever. Yeah, they as group for organizing things, they have a lot of power. Of course, more in the international 4chan than in Forocoches, that they just do send mariachis. That's all they do mostly. But it's quite dangerous.
Yeah,
There
for
was-
coaches, I don't think they've harmed physically anybody, but I do think, correct me if I'm wrong, but swatting originated in 4chan? Like the practice of swatting? Do you know what that is?
Swatting?
From SWAT? Swatting.
SWAT.
Oh, swatting. Oh, like
What's
sending the SWAT to the homes, right? Like the police.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they not only they send
Yeah.
what they do is using services that render the calls untraceable. They call emergency services and say that, for example, in a house of a famous person or someone they want to troll online, they say someone's there with a gun and hostages. You have to go there, and so the police go there with orders to kill. And there are people who have died that sort of way, and I think that originated in 4chan. I don't know if I'm mistaken.
Yeah,
but I think the practice
that's
started
completely
there
right.
and moved on to other social media. But and a man was convicted. I think to life imprisonment in the first swatting case that went to trial there in the United States because a person died. And the worst thing is, the fight was an online fight about a video game, about a video game squabble that someone had cheated or something like that, and they became angry with each other. And the thing is, they gave out the address of the wrong home, and an innocent person that had nothing to do and was not the intended target was the one that died because the police shot him, believing he was a criminal. So
Yeah, no, I remember
really harmful stuff.
reading about this. Like they just call the army or the police saying this is happening in this house, and they go there. Of course, nothing is happening, but it's the fucking police with guns, so anything can go wrong. Yeah, the power they have to ruin someone's life just because they want to, it's amazing. Like amazing in the bad sense. Like it's too much. Like they target someone. Like I remember the case of a girl that had posted something on her YouTube or in her blog or whatever, and they didn't like it, so they target her and make her life impossible. Somehow they hacked their Facebook, started posting pictures that her family and her friends could see, like ruined her life in 2 days just because they wanted to. And this is incredible.
Yeah, here for coaches, for example, were the one they have people in the judge, in front of the judge, for revealing the identity of the victim of the manada in San Fermin.
Oh, yeah.
They were the ones, for coaches were the one revealing her identity. The guy was identified. Was some guy using neighbor's Wi-Fi. That's quite. But they identified the guy, and the guy is now he's in front of court very soon.
I guess that shows that the quality of Coaches hackers is worse than 4chan's.
They get caught.
Yeah, for Coaches
using the neighbor's Wi-Fi. Where are you?
I mean, they probably are like 12 or something, right?
For Coaches is a band of brother-in-law. Or brothers-in-law, so it's actually.
Yeah, but if they reflect on one another, they could grow bigger. That's dangerous.
No, but the good services for coaches is like these sick people are investing their time in follow coaches instead of being somewhere else. So at least they are somehow in a place we can know. Anyway.
Anyways, we're getting very far away from the story. Actually, this was a very intense debate. I like this discussion because there were many different opposite perspectives. Two things, well, actually just one, I'm not going to say there. One thing that I want to say about the story, that actually is not my idea, I read it online, but it was very interesting because I was looking at the YouTube video where someone was reading this story. And the comments in YouTube, they were painful, as they are watching, because it seems like teenagers or 12 years old are writing these comments saying
you hope that they're 12 years old, but the sad part is they're probably not.
Or at least people with mentalities more suitable of a 12-year-old.
Right. It may be a bunch of robbers with 35 years old and a bunch of I don't know.
Robert, don't do this to yourself.
Anyway, the thing is that one of them...
internet, Robert.
Yeah, it surprised me because one of the comments was saying, well, she's disempowered, but she's still a white, college-educated young woman who the story describes as attractive and capable, which talks a lot about privilege and how even if in these stories is the let's not enter in the debate and the polemic again, but like she's also kind of a privileged person in the big context of things. Just wanted to point that out because it called my attention.
Mm-hmm. I personally not blaming either of them because I don't really understand deeply how did they feel. So I don't feel authorized to blame one or the other or any of them. Okay. So obviously I don't like him. I don't like his way of being, but I also feel pity about him, also for him. Okay. I think Margot also feels pity about Robert. Okay, so I'm not the only one. But again, obviously, I do not approve his behavior. But I think I can start understanding why. So now I know I can not liking him for something, not just because of some word he used at the end of the story. And it is what it is. Okay, so it's not a matter of really what people does. It's more about what people is. and this person is very mature, insecure, maybe, I don't know who's first, what's first, but yeah, I think I think we need to we should worry first to understanding people and then judging them. Judging before understanding is quite dangerous sometimes because we can make mistakes, as Margot maybe did with him. She
But what
misjudged
mistakes
Robert.
does Margot? I don't understand how we can. I mean, Margot doesn't do anything. She goes on this date. She doesn't like it, so she tells him afterwards, "Okay, I'm not interested." Like, what in any of that is anything wrong or immature? Or I mean, it seems age appropriate for a 20-year-old to behave everything that she did, and I don't see. I mean, I don't know. I don't understand how anybody can walk away from that story thinking that she did something wrong to him. She kind of harms herself by going along with stuff that she knows she doesn't really want to. But
No, I'm not making her responsible. I'm making him responsible of his immaturity and his behavior. Margot is also responsible for the pain she caused herself. Some part of it, at least. Okay, maybe but she's learning from her experience. My perception is that after this story, she learned. Okay, but I'm not blaming him, blaming her. But I say also she needs to take a part of the responsibility for the initial flirting. Also, of course, if I have to blame something after understanding him, I'm blaming Robert. Okay, but Margot should have tried to know him first before going deeply into that sex intercourse. Okay, because she was somehow playing at some point during this break, texting and doing this kind of thing. And it's very normal, you know. People are with a short experience in relationship, as she was, needs to experiment to new people, make mistakes eventually, or meeting people that are not the proper one. That's what makes one adult person or mature person mature about her feelings. So she's learning from that. Okay, it's not we can blame her. Okay, maybe she's the one that has to decide if she wants to take part of the responsibility or not. But obviously, if there is someone we need to finger point, is him.
But
after knowing him.
When you say she learned, maybe she does, but maybe it's not like a positive thing. Like, I don't know, I have had this kind of experiences, and I have more fear to be misunderstood, or the guy turn out to be a creepy guy. Like,
yeah,
you get more fear, no more.
My perception is that she realized she was too open with him. She went too freely to go into his house. She realized she made a mistake because she didn't like the output of that situation. But at the end, she also felt some empathy for him. She didn't want to hurt him. But at some point, it's very clear that in this kind of situations, you need, even if you don't want, you need to hurt the other people so the other people can get the easy way out, that is hating you. So maybe this final sentence was some mercy Margot had towards Robert, allowing him to hate her so they can split up in a less painful way.
I don't think that she's to blame for anything. I don't think she does anything wrong, other than trying to meet someone that she thinks that may be cool, and then turning out that he's not. She doesn't do anything wrong. And but I also see the part where this Richard is such a pathetic loser that I feel sad for him. Like I feel pity. It's like he's such an asshole that he's going to be unhappy the rest of his life. That's what the impression that I got. So he's an asshole, and I feel bad for him because he's going to be sad and lonely the rest of his life.
Yeah, there is something I think Mo talked before. This kind of or I think it was Eugenia. I'm not sure. This kind of behavior that mostly men does toward women. You know, they are looking for someone they can protect. They can to be over, feel that they are protecting her, being in a dominant position of the relationship. Okay, and that is obviously a terrible strategy to establish a healthy relationship. But there is also the other way around. Some people, women and men, it's quite frequent in abused women, that feel some tendency, you know, people that has been abused are usually looking for some similar figure that the initial abuser. Okay, are looking abuse. I'm not talking about sexually or physically abuse, maybe mostly psychologically abuse. Okay, are looking for someone that is mistreating her. All of us, we're having friends that are failing again and again in relationship with the other person. It's a toxic person, it's somebody that is mistreating him or her, and it's always looking for the same type of couple that is mistreating our friend. That's quite frequent. Okay, this kind of the way we face this kind of situations, like Margot did, is usually setting how are we going to behave in the future in similar situations. Okay, here Margot went well out of the relationship, but maybe she could be hooked up by this toxic relationship, depending on him, being dominated by him, being abused, not only physically but mostly psychologically abused by some father figure or sort of that. So I think it's also quite relevant that this kind of relationship, not very good relationship, can be also on the table of this story.
I think that derives from the fact that any toxic relationship has its consequences. They're toxic for a reason. They're toxic because they are not good for you. They're not healthy, and it's I don't know, like binge eating. You eat junk food and you can't stop, even though you know it's bad, because it's there, it's available. There are some parts you like about it, and for you the good parts outweigh the bad ones, even if that's not necessarily true. If you're in a toxic relationship and then you move on to another one that is toxic either way, it's not because you're seeking a toxic relationship, it's because you at the moment feel drawn to that and don't know any better because of what you've experienced. I've as you said before, Adrian, with this YouTube comment, we have our part of privilege. I'm a woman, but I have a university education. I am white. I don't have any racial problems, any economic problems. I'm not in a particularly vulnerable situation, but I've known my fair share of women, mostly in toxic relationships. One of my best friends in university, we grew apart because she had been in a 4-5 year relationship. That means we met when we were 18, so she had been since she was 14 with this high school boyfriend that broke her lip with his fist while he was drunk one night, and then he kept doing it, and that's not something an 18-year-old should experience ever. And her own mother had been a victim of domestic abuse at the hands of his father. She had remarried, and she had tried so hard for her daughter to see the signs of what a relationship should not be, and still it had happened. Because these things, you can't control them. you're not going to realize that your partner is toxic for you, not abusive, but just toxic, that the relationship is not bringing any of you or one of you anything good, but more bad things than good ones. And before you realize, you're in too deep. Even if in this story it's hard for her to let go, and she doesn't know him that well, but she wants to protect his feelings. She doesn't want to be the one making him feel bad, because she feels he doesn't deserve it. He hasn't done anything overly wrong or horrible, even though he somehow has had reproachable attitudes, but she still cares for him, even though they haven't been together for such a long time. Why? Because we're human. We care for each other, especially when in romantic relationships. Even if you have a very short relationship with someone, you're going to think of him in a more passionate way, in a more emotional way. You're way too involved for you to have clean breakups. I think it's human.
Interesting. In the story, she's not actually the one who breaks it off. Like, she doesn't want to see him again. She spends days thinking about, how can I end this? And in the end, it's only because her friend takes her phone and writes the message that she breaks things off, because she wasn't going to. She said, like, yeah, I'll text you later, even though she has zero interest in continuing the relationship. But it's so ingrained that I have to be nice, I have to be polite. He didn't technically do anything wrong, so I can't.
Yeah, that's the mentality.
And it's a very pervasive mentality, I think, for everyone, but I think especially for girls that were raised to be nice and polite and have this emotional burden that we have to care about everybody else's feelings. Everyone else's feelings is our responsibility. If someone's upset, it's not because they're upset, it's because we have to fix it, or we have to take care of it. And that's not healthy, but it's
in
very
the story, she's all the time thinking, was it something I said? Was it something I did? What can I do to undo this? I just did. And it's because of that, I think. It's because of this need to please, to be the one that makes you feel good, that doesn't put any problems. And that is because some of it has been somehow engraved into many of women's minds, that your value lies in how happy a man is with you. And that's not true. Your happiness is the one who matters. Doesn't matter whether you're a woman or a man. It's your happiness. Where we all have a right to be selfish in our romantic relationships. You're not in a romantic relationship to make the other person feel better. You're there to make both feel better. And for me, in this story, it's about this need to accommodate. You don't. It's if you are not feeling good, you should break it off for the other person's sake, but most of it for your own. Even if it's hard sometimes, because Mo, like you said, she isn't even the one that does it. She isn't even the one who pulls the trigger. Someone else has to do it for her.
Yeah, but this is, I mean, one of the most difficult things in a relationship is being the one that is breaking the relationship, ending it. Because I mean, it doesn't happen many times, but a couple of times happened to me. It was even worse than being the one left. Okay, being the one that deciding we are over, and telling that to someone that you have some appreciation. Okay, it's very difficult, because you don't want, you feel,
in a way you feel guilty
you feel empathy
for the pain the other person goes through. You
feel
that guilt over your general.
But with time, we learn that the best approach is go straight for it and pull the bandage, and just in one movement. No?
Rip it off as soon as you can.
Rip it off. That's right.
Because you have to.
I think it's the best approach.
Have to be considerate of the other person. You can't
just
pretend everything's
fine. I'm thinking about the changing subject. I'm thinking about the 5 stages of dual of pain management. I don't know.
Grief.
Grief. That's right. Well, grief.
Las fases del duelo in Spanish.
Yeah. Yes. First is denial. Okay. At the beginning, Robert is not considering she doesn't want to be with him. And then the second is anger. It's at the point where the story ends. Okay, with the anger. Then it should be some negotiation. You have Eugenio. You have already mentioned. It has been me. What can I do? Blah blah blah. Then depression, and then acceptance. And it's quite interesting, because we have ended the story at the beginning of the grief, or Robert's grief. Okay, but I'm not sure if Robert met Margot when he didn't finish some previous grief process, because he looked like some sad person, she thought at some point. So maybe he was still grieving for a previous relationship that was also conditioning him. Maybe because he made the same mistakes that he's making with Margot. Okay, so it's also something can make us understand how Robert is and how Robert ends and how Robert keep being in the future with future relationship, because at this point we don't get that Robert has learned anything from this relationship. And in my opinion, Margot has learned something, has matured.
Maybe Robert was married all along and he was an adulterer and we don't know it because he has the age to be so.
I don't think someone can stop him so long.
It's silly, but as we have been discussing, I feel like I really need if Robert had or not cats.
Yeah.
Because it will allow me to understand, to know better Robert, knowing if he has cat or not. I don't know. I need it. I feel like I need it. Maybe because of the title, maybe because, I don't know. But maybe it can be.
I don't see him caring for his cats. I can't picture him. But maybe he has, and we don't know about it.
That's a point. I said if he has cats, he's not caring about the cats. So we know more Robert because of that. And if he's not having cats, he's using that story of having cats to manipulate her. So it's also not good.
Or he has a secret cat room, like a bunker, where he keeps
but
his cats.
this small clue can eventually allow us to know a bit more Robert. Okay.
I remember one of my mother's friends had a mansion for her and her cats in the Sierra, near you, very, very in a village somewhere. And she had so many cats. I think it was 40-something cats. She even had to have a permit because you're not allowed to have that many pets without any permit from the Comunidad de Madrid or something like that. And I remember the cats had their own televisions because they loved watching TV. And it was very creepy because it was this room full of these very old TVs that are like bricks. They're very, very, they're more body than screen. It was full of those monitors, and the cats were all the time there. The 40-something cats watching TV, and I was like, I like cats, but this is a bit creepy, this room, because it was full of cats doing nothing but watching the TV. And I was like, yeah, this is too weird for me. So maybe Robert has something like that.
Oh, he's a cat hoarder as well.
Cat hoarder?
He wasn't unappealing enough. Also hoards cats.
For a few years, that friend of my mother, she even moved to Normandia in France because one or two of her cats were ill. They needed humidity, so they moved there. Oh my god, she's crazy. Yeah, cat hoarders are one of a kind.
Yeah.
Jesus, I'm digging into this thing of the cats. In Madrid, we are allowed to have up to 5 cats or dogs in apartments.
Yeah,
5.
Otherwise you need this permit, this special permit.
Yeah, but 5? Who needs more than 2 or 3?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Especially in
I had a girlfriend who has 3 cats because she adopted 1 cat, and the cat was pregnant, He had four actually, and she gave away 2 of them, but she kept the other 2 because she lost. And we were living with 3 cats, and that's, I mean, cats were quite calm, but having like 5 dogs, it's could be a nightmare.
But it's not the same.
I like dogs more than cats, but I learned to love cats. It's different kind of relationship actually, but it's also interesting.
Guys, we've been at this like for more than 2 hours. Just one last point that I want to do for the story. We comment a little bit and then we can stop. I was feeling when I was reading the story something that reminded me as an analogy of what happens with races of cars or motorbikes. I don't like them so much. I find them boring. But sometimes when you see a race for Formula 1 or something like that. Yeah. Let me finish so you can understand the analogy. So
let's see where you're going.
Yeah. So the races, the cars are racing, and they are like in a straight road. So they are going normally. And then when they get to the curve, it seems that they are going to like get out of the circuit. They are going to get out of the road, and it's like a moment of they are going to crash, but they go back into the circuit. That moment is what makes it a little bit less boring. And that happened to me in this story when they have a conflict or moments or vulnerability. For a split second, it felt that, because it happened in several points in the story, that they are handling it in a mature way, and actually those moments are bringing them closer together, but then they go away again and crash, right? Those moments that, almost is going to happen, but no, he's a fucking asshole, happened to me several times during the story, and I like that happened, because at some point I thought that something good could have come out of it.
As I said,
thank you for the explanation, because I didn't know what Fast and Furious had to do with this short story. I wasn't going to get that.
In motor races, it's even better because they almost touch the ground. It's amazing.
Yeah.
The motorcycles.
I had a different feeling during reading the book. There were 2 feelings actually. One of them was, particularly the second half of the book, I was fearing that he was going to rape her at any moment. Okay, I don't know. I had that feeling. Maybe I was also being prejudicial about him. You know? But also there was something strange. At some point, when I was at the middle of the story, I thought that it was her, the one telling the story. You know, Margot telling the story. But then I went back some pages, and the story is written in 3rd person. The whole story.
They start Margot and Robert met.
Yeah, but I didn't. I mean, maybe I was not paying enough attention, or it was making me thinking that it was her the one telling the story. Maybe because the author is a woman. I don't know. Okay, but I was mistaken. So I went back and started reading, knowing that it's a 3rd person story. But even in being in that 3rd person story, for me it looks like Margot's friends would be the one telling me the story, because it looks like the author is knowing more Margot than Robert, and we know more about Margot's feeling than Robert's. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a story Margot would spread, not one that Robert would spread. I can't see a guy saying, yeah, and I call her whore when she blew me off. I can't see that. That's very bad publicity for you to be telling around. So yeah, it's more like a funny anecdote that you will have, like, yeah, I dated this guy and he did this, and I was like, do you even have cats?
Yeah, but knowing Robert, he's not the kind of person that is used to share this kind of experience with anyone.
Yeah, and he's a 30-something-year-old man. I have my theory that he's married and has kids, but he's an adulterer.
And cats.
And I'm sticking to it.
In other house.
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe it was the house of his previous victim. Sorry.
Okay, now I was just thinking that we could stop at this point because I'm too tired of being in front of the screen. Unless you want to add something.
When is the next one? The next one should be on Sunday, right?
Yeah. Do we have a story?
Yeah, it's mine. It's my story. No,
Yeah,
it's
mine.
the story I
joined.
He's still writing it, so
Which one
hold on.
it was. Which one is it?
It's called Together by Jess Arndt. It's
not about cats.
Not as far as I know. I haven't finished
Neither
reading
this
it
one.
yet, but no, this one's not really. Doesn't have cat in the title.
Like it, so that was
I'm-
good enough for me.
I'm
So
attending another.
it's a contemporary one too, right?
Yeah. Yes.
I have another reading group on Sunday, so you can attend same time.
Well, Mo, I'm sure we will enjoy it.
Hope so. I read enough of it to ascertain that the writing was like good, like not terrible, but I haven't finished it, so I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see.
Let's see. The Miss Sadie one was very good. No, Miss Adele. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So let's hope it's good.
Hopefully this one's good too.
Yeah, that was Sadie Smith's, right? The Miss Adele.
Yeah, that's what I missed. I said Miss Sadie, but it's Sadie. But yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but I only remember when there's no people left. We have to do the Eurovisión encuesta. And we're not doing it, and I thought that.
We need Nuria to organize that.
For Greece.
So we need to remember to do it.
I always forget to do them.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
See you there on the next one.
Thank you very much.
See you Sunday.
Have a nice. Bye.
Bye.